The morning sun rose softly over the town of Ibadan, spilling golden light across the narrow streets. The air was alive with song, women humming wedding chants, drums echoing from the church compound, and laughter carrying through open windows. It was the day Amara had dreamed of since she was a child, her wedding day. Inside her family home, Amara sat before a mirror framed with palm leaves and ribbons. Her reflection showed a young woman glowing with quiet beauty. Calm eyes, warm brown skin, a smile touched with nerves. Around her, her aunties tied the jewel on her head with practiced hands, teasing her with love. "Today, you walk into your destiny," one said, her voice full of pride. Amara smiled, whispering back, "May it be a good one." Everywhere she looked, joy bloomed. Her cousins danced as they arranged baskets of flowers. Her mother fussed over the final touches of her dress, white lace with gold embroidery, whispering prayers under her breath. The air smelled of roses, shea butter, and hope. In another part of town, the groom, Tunda, was the image of confidence, tall, broad-shouldered, with a smile that could melt a crowd. People admired him, the successful young businessman who had built his own company before turning 30. He was loved, respected, and everyone said Amara was blessed to have found him. They called them the perfect match, and to Amara, that's exactly what he was. Her answered prayer. As she sat there, she remembered the first time she met him, how he had helped her pick up papers she dropped in the rain, how gentle he'd been. From that moment, her heart had chosen him without question. Today felt like the final chapter of that love story, a promise made in front of heaven and earth. When the drums began outside, signaling the arrival of the bridal convoy, Amara's heart fluttered. The world around her moved in rhythm. The chanting women, the beating drums, the scent of burning incense. Elders blessed the union, calling on ancestors to guide their path. Every sound felt sacred. Every face carried hope. As she walked toward the church, her father's arm steady beside her, Amara felt tears rising, not of fear, but of joy too big for her chest. The aisle stretched before her like a dream painted in gold light. But just as she reached the door of the church, a strange stillness passed through her. For a brief second, everything around her, the drums, the singing, the laughter, seemed to fade. Her smile faltered. A chill brushed her skin. It was gone as quickly as it came. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to dismiss it. "It's just nerves," she thought. The music swelled again as the doors opened, revealing Tunda waiting at the altar, smiling, handsome, proud. The crowd rose in awe. Amara's heart lifted again. But deep inside, something faint, something she could not name, whispered to her. Spirit. It was the first hint that her perfect beginning was hiding a storm. The ceremony ended with joy so bright it seemed to touch the heavens. The drums thundered, the choir sang, and guests clapped as Amara and Tunde walked hand in hand down the church aisle, husband and wife. The air outside shimmered with laughter and sunlight. Friends threw petals. Children ran around them in delight. Amara felt light, almost floating. Every smile, every blessing felt like a piece of forever being placed in her hands. Tunda squeezed her fingers gently as they stepped toward the waiting crowd. His face held that same charming smile, the one that always made her feel safe. But behind his eyes, something flickered, something restless, something she could not name. She ignored it. Today was too perfect to question. They stood under the wide silk canopy, accepting gifts, shaking hands, smiling for photos. The band played a soft highlife tune, and guests lined up to greet the newlyweds. Then, in the middle of the celebration, Amara's gaze dropped, and her world stopped moving. There, on Tunde's polished black shoes, was a dark stain. small, almost hidden, but red. She blinked, thinking it must be dust from the road or spilled palm wine from the dancing guests. But as he stepped closer, the light caught it again, deep crimson, soaking faintly into the edge of his trousers. Blood. Her breath caught in her throat. For a moment, she couldn't hear the music anymore. The laughter around her melted into a dull echo, as if the world had suddenly gone far away. Her heart began to race. "Tundi," she whispered, her voice trembling. He didn't hear her. He was already turning toward a group of elders, bowing slightly, smiling with that effortless charm. Amara tried to shake it off. Maybe someone had cut their hand during the festivities. Maybe it wasn't what it looked like. She forced a smile for the camera. The flash went off, but she barely noticed. Her eyes stayed on that stain, and suddenly, like pieces of a puzzle she hadn't known existed, memories began to connect. Tunde had arrived late to the ceremony, his shirt slightly rumpled, his voice sharp when she'd asked if everything was fine. He'd laughed it off, saying traffic was bad. She'd believed him. Now, as she stared at his shoes, she felt that same chill from earlier sweep through her chest. Her hands trembled as she accepted another handshake, pretending all was well. Inside, her thoughts screamed, "Why is there blood? Whose blood is that? What happened before the wedding?" The sun burned brighter above, but Amara felt cold. When she finally looked up again, Tunda was watching her. Not lovingly, but with a strange intensity, as if he could sense her thoughts. Their eyes met for just a second. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Then he turned away, laughing with a guest. Mara's lips trembled. She wanted to ask him right there, in front of everyone. But something in his expression stopped her. A hardness she had never seen before. The ceremony continued. The music played on. People danced and toasted to their love. But for Amara, the joy had turned hollow. Every cheer, every camera flash, every drumbeat now sounded distant, like echoes from another world. When they finally sat down for their first meal as a married couple, she caught herself staring at his shoes again. The red stain was still there. Her heart sank. She whispered softly, almost under her breath, "God, what am I not seeing?" Her voice was lost beneath the sound of drums, swallowed by celebration. But inside her, something quiet and heavy began to form. A warning, a shadow, the first crack in her perfect world. Amara smiled for the crowd, but her eyes no longer carried joy. They carried fear. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of orange and rose. The wedding celebration still roared with life. Music, laughter, camera flashes, and endless chatter. Guests danced, plates clattered, and the scent of jollof rice filled the air. But Amara's heart was no longer there. She moved through the crowd like a ghost, smiling when expected, laughing when spoken to, but her eyes never truly focused. They kept returning, again and again, to Tunde. He stood a few feet away, talking animatedly to an older man, his hand gestures sharp, his tone too firm for friendly talk. When he noticed Amara watching, he quickly smiled and waved, but the movement felt forced, like an actor remembering his lines. Something inside her twisted. Earlier that morning, when he had arrived at the church, he'd been late, his shirt collar slightly wrinkled, his eyes dark, his breath uneven. When she had asked if he was okay, he'd brushed it off, saying he just needed air. Now, the memory wouldn't leave her. The laughter around her felt wrong, hollow. A gentle hand touched her shoulder. It was Ngozi, her childhood friend and bridesmaid. "Amara, you look tense," she said softly. "Is everything all right?" Amara hesitated, then whispered, "Ngozi, did you see Tunde before the wedding? Was he with anyone?" Ngozi's smile faded. She glanced around before leaning closer. "I wasn't sure if I should say this," she murmured. "But yes, I saw him behind the church. He was arguing with someone, a man I didn't recognize. It looked serious." Amara's breath caught. Arguing? About what? I don't know, Gozi replied, shaking her head. But when he saw me, the other man walked away quickly. Tunda told me not to mention it. He looked angry. A chill spread through Amara's body. The image of the blood on his shoes flashed in her mind again. For a few moments, she couldn't move. The drums, the music, the laughter, all became a blur. Her hands trembled slightly as she forced herself to nod. "Thank you," she whispered. When she turned back to the crowd, Tunda was laughing again, surrounded by friends. His charm seemed effortless. He looked like the perfect husband. But now, Amara saw something beneath that. A tightness around his mouth, a nervous glance that flickered every few minutes. He was hiding something. She could feel it. Later that evening, as the guests started to leave and the sky turned dark, Amara excused herself quietly and went to the dressing room. She needed a moment to breathe, to think, to steady the storm growing inside her. The room was silent except for the faint hum of distant drums. Candles flickered against the mirror. Her veil lay crumpled on the table. Then, a faint buzz broke the silence. She turned and saw Tunde's phone on the counter. The screen lit up with a new message. Against her better judgment, she stepped closer. The message glowed on the screen. "It's done. No one saw me." Amara froze. Her chest tightened. The words felt like a knife sliding into her stomach. She read it again and again, hoping it meant something else. A joke. A mistake. Anything. But deep down, she knew. Her legs felt weak. She sank into the nearest chair, clutching her hands together, whispering, "No, no, God, please, no." A rush of thoughts filled her mind. The blood, the argument, the tension in Tunde's voice, his late arrival. Tears burned in her eyes as her heart began to split between love and fear. When she finally stepped out of the room, her face was calm again, her smile practiced. But something inside her had changed. Her wedding night no longer felt like a blessing. It felt like a warning. The wedding was over. The guests had gone home. Only silence remained, and the echo of drums fading into the night. The newlyweds' car drove through the empty streets of Lagos, headlights slicing through patches of mist. Amara sat quietly in the passenger seat, her wedding gown still perfect, her heart anything but. Beside her, Tunda hummed softly to the radio, as if nothing had happened. But his hands on the steering wheel were tight. His eyes flicked to the rear-view mirror every few seconds. Like he was expecting to see someone behind them, Amara noticed every small movement, every heavy breath. When they reached the hotel, a grand building glowing with gold lights, Tunda smiled and helped her out of the car. "You look tired, my love," he said gently. "Let's rest. Tomorrow will be beautiful." But she could barely look at him. The message on his phone haunted her. "It's done. No one saw me." As they entered the suite, Amara's mind kept spinning. The night was supposed to be filled with joy and intimacy, but now the air was cold, the silence thick. Tunda stepped into the bathroom, humming again. She sat on the bed, glancing at his shoes near the door. The same shoes from earlier. The blood had been cleaned off, freshly polished. Too clean. She felt a chill. Then, a faint sound outside the window. At first, she thought it was just wind, but then came a low rumble. A car pulling up, stopping, and then doors closing. Voices. Urgent ones. She crept to the balcony, her heart hammering. Below, in the hotel parking lot, she saw two men standing beside a dark van. One of them looked around nervously, while the other made a call. She couldn't hear everything, but one phrase cut through clearly. "The body's gone." Her stomach dropped. "The body's gone." She stumbled backward, covering her mouth to stop the scream rising in her throat. At that moment, Tunda came out of the bathroom, towel around his shoulders, his phone in his hand. When he saw her pale face, he froze. "Amara?" What's wrong? She turned to him slowly, her voice shaking. Tunde, who are those men outside? What body are they talking about? His expression flickered, just for a second, before he masked it with a smile. You must be tired, love. Maybe you're hearing things. But she wasn't tired. She was terrified. He moved toward her, his tone calm but firm. Come, let's rest. It's been a long day. Amara backed away. Don't, she whispered. Don't come closer. Something in her eyes must have told him she knew too much, because his jaw tightened. He set the phone on the table and sighed heavily. Amara, he said quietly, there are things you don't understand. Things I didn't want to involve you in. Her heart pounded. Then explain it to me, he hesitated. His voice dropped. There was a man, someone from my past. He tried to ruin everything. He came today, just before the wedding. I handled it. Handled it? She repeated, her voice trembling. What does that mean? Tunde looked at her, eyes dark and distant. It means you're safe now. That's all you need to know. Safe. But the word felt poisoned. Amara turned toward the door, but just then, a knock shattered the silence. 3 hard knocks. Tunde stiffened instantly. He motioned for her to stay quiet. Then he walked slowly toward the door. Who is it? He called out. A voice answered from the hallway, low and sharp. We need to talk. The body! It's gone! Amara gasped. Tunde's shoulders tensed. He opened the door just slightly, whispering to the man outside. Their words were muffled, but she caught fragments. River. Police. Witness. Her blood ran cold. Then Tunde turned back into the room. But the man outside was gone, vanished into the night as quietly as he had come. Amara stood frozen, her wedding dress glowing faintly in the dim light. Tunde closed the door slowly, his face now unreadable. Forget what you heard, he said, voice flat. If you love me, you'll stay silent. Tears filled her eyes. And if I don't? He looked at her for a long, heavy moment. Then, without answering, he turned away. And for the first time that night, Amara saw something she couldn't unsee. On the back of his neck, just above his collar, was a small smear of dried blood. The night stretched endlessly. Amara didn't sleep. Tunde lay beside her, breathing evenly, as if the world hadn't cracked open around them. His face looked peaceful in the dim light. Too peaceful, like a mask carved by someone who'd forgotten what truth looked like. She turned away, staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying everything. The blood, the message, the stranger's voice outside the door. The body's gone. Each thought tightened around her chest until she could barely breathe. The man she had married, the one she thought she knew, was now a shadow she couldn't recognize. When dawn broke, gray light spilled through the curtains. The world outside was quiet except for the faint sound of birds. Amara slipped out of bed, her bare feet silent on the carpet. She went to the balcony again, her heart still heavy. The parking lot was empty now. The van was gone, no sign of the strangers. But the quiet didn't feel peaceful. It felt watched. As she turned to go back inside, a knock echoed softly at the door. Once, twice, then a pause. Her heart leapt. Tunde stirred slightly, but didn't wake. She froze, unsure what to do. Another knock came. Firmer this time. Slowly, she crossed the room and pressed her ear to the door. A man's voice whispered, "Mrs. Adderwale, please, I need to speak with you. It's about your husband." Her breath caught. Without opening the door, she whispered back, "Who are you?" "I can't talk here," the voice said urgently. "They'll hear me. Please, come to the lobby. I promise. You need to know the truth." Amara's pulse raced. Her eyes darted back to the bed. Tunde was still asleep. She hesitated, then grabbed a shawl and slipped quietly out the door. The hallway felt endless, every step echoing like thunder. She took the elevator down, her hands trembling. When the doors opened, a man stood waiting in the far corner of the lobby. He was young, tall, and dressed in a security uniform, though his badge looked slightly crooked, like it wasn't really his. He stepped forward quickly, lowering his voice. "You don't know me, but my name is Emeka. I work for the hotel. Last night, I saw something." Amara's throat went dry. "What did you see?" He looked around before continuing. "Your husband met with two men behind the hotel, near the service gate. They were moving something. A large bag, heavy. They loaded it into the van." Her stomach twisted. "A bag?" Emeka nodded grimly. "I thought it was just luggage until one of them dropped it. The bag tore open a little, and I saw a man's hand." Amara felt the floor tilt beneath her. "A hand?" she whispered, her voice shaking. "Yes," Emeka said quietly. "There was blood. A lot of it. I took a picture before they noticed me. But when I came back, the van was gone." He pulled out his phone, showing her a blurred image. Dark, grainy, but unmistakable. A limp arm hanging from a torn black bag. Amara covered her mouth. "Oh my God." Emeka's eyes darted toward the hallway. "Listen to me. I don't know who your husband really is, but the men he met with, they're dangerous. One of them was here again this morning, asking about me. I'm leaving soon, but I had to warn you." Tears stung her eyes. "Why are you helping me?" He hesitated. "Because that man in the bag, I think I know him. He used to work here. He was kind to everyone. His name was Kelechi." The name echoed in her mind. Unfamiliar, yet heavy with meaning. Before she could respond, a voice cut through the silence behind her. "Amara." She turned. And there stood Tunde at the top of the staircase, wearing a calm smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Why are you down here?" he asked softly, too softly. "It's early." Emeka immediately pocketed his phone and stepped back. "Sir, I was just—" Tunde's gaze snapped to him, sharp as a blade. "Go back to your post." Emeka glanced at Amara, then turned and walked away quickly. Tunde descended the stairs slowly, each step echoing. "My wife," he said, voice low, "there are things you don't need to get involved in. Curiosity can be dangerous." Amara stood frozen. "What did you do, Tunde?" He reached her and gently touched her face. "Everything I've done was to protect us." She pulled away. "From who?" He smiled faintly, but there was no warmth in it. "From people who wanted to destroy me. But now they're gone." "Gone." The word sank into her bones. Tunde leaned close and whispered, "You'll thank me one day." But as he turned to lead her back upstairs, Amara's eyes drifted toward the front desk, and she noticed something on the marble floor. A small smear of blood, half-dried, leading toward the service gate. Her heart pounded. Whatever truth was hiding behind Tunde's calm voice, it wasn't finished. Not yet. By noon, the hotel no longer felt like a place of rest. It felt like a cage. Amara sat near the window, staring at the street below, watching life continue as if nothing had changed. Cars honking, people laughing, children chasing each other down the sidewalk. But inside her, something was unraveling. The memory of Emeka's face haunted her. His warning, his fear, that terrible image of a hand slipping out of a torn bag. Tunde moved around the suite, calm and collected, as if their world hadn't started to crack. He was on his phone most of the morning, pacing slowly, speaking in quiet tones. Whenever she came close, he ended the call. Each time, her stomach knotted tighter. At one point, he looked up and smiled faintly. "Why do you keep staring, my love?" "You look like you've seen a ghost." She forced a small smile. "Maybe I have." He chuckled softly, not catching the edge in her voice, or pretending not to. When he stepped into the bathroom, Amara reached for her own phone. Her hands trembled as she scrolled to the last number she'd dialed. Emeka. She pressed call, The line rang once, twice, then went dead. She tried again. This time, a recorded voice replied, "The number you are trying to reach is not available." Her heart sank. She sent a quick message instead. "Please, tell me you're okay. I need to know." No reply. Minutes passed. Then an hour. The silence grew heavier. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. When Tunde said he was going to meet a client for a quick business matter, she nodded and waited until he left. As soon as the door closed, she grabbed her shawl and rushed out. The hotel lobby was quieter than before. A cleaner mopped near the reception desk, humming softly. Amara went straight to the corner where Emeka had been standing earlier that morning. It was empty now, only a faint scuff on the tile where his boot had been. She approached the front desk. "Excuse me," she said to the receptionist, trying to sound calm. "Where's the security officer from this morning?" "The tall one? Emeka?" The woman frowned. "Emeka? We don't have anyone by that name working here." Amara blinked. "That's impossible. I spoke with him just a few hours ago." The receptionist shook her head firmly. "Ma'am, I've been here since last night. I know every guard on duty. There's no Emeka." For a long moment, Amara just stood there, her pulse thundering in her ears. No Emeka, no record, nothing. It was as if he had never existed. She stumbled back a step, confusion and fear clashing in her mind. Could he have lied? Could he have been one of them, sent to trick her? Before she could think further, two police officers walked into the lobby. Their dark uniforms carried an authority that instantly drew attention. They approached the desk. "Good afternoon," one said, flashing a badge. "We're looking for a couple, Mr. and Mrs. Attawale. Are they staying here?" The receptionist pointed toward the elevators. "Yes, sir." "Suite 407. Amara's heart leapt. The officer turned to her. "Ma'am, are you Mrs. Attawale?" She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Yes," he exchanged a look with his partner. "We'd like to ask a few questions, if you don't mind." She swallowed hard. "What's this about?" "There was an incident near the river last night," he said carefully. "A fisherman found traces of blood, and a torn piece of a garment that matches one registered to a missing man named Kalichi. Witnesses say they saw your husband in the area earlier that evening." The world tilted. "My husband?" "Yes," the officer said, watching her closely. "We're not accusing him yet, but we need to speak with him." Amara's lips trembled. "He's not here. He stepped out. The officer nodded. "Then we'll wait." She nodded numbly and led them to the suite. Her mind raced. If the police were here, it meant the truth was beginning to surface. But what if Tunde returned before she could warn them, or before she could escape? As they entered the room, one officer scanned the space while the other took notes. Amara sat at the edge of the bed, hands clasped tightly, trying to steady her voice. "When did you last see him?" the officer asked. "About 20 minutes ago," she replied. "He said he was meeting someone, a client." The officer paused, scribbling something down. "Do you know where?" She shook her head. "No, but—" She hesitated. "There's something you should see." She reached for her purse and took out her phone, showing them the photo Emeka had shown her, the blurred image of the bag, the limp hand. The officers leaned closer. One of them swore under his breath. "Where did you get this?" "A man named Emeka gave it to me this morning. He said he worked here." The two men exchanged glances again, this time more serious. "Ma'am," one said carefully, "there is no Emeka listed on this hotel's staff. We just checked. Whoever he was, he's missing too." Amara felt her heart stop. The words hit like thunder. "He's missing too." Tunde's words from the night before whispered through her mind. Curiosity can be dangerous. For the first time, Amara understood. Emeka hadn't disappeared. He had been erased. The room felt colder when the police left. They had promised to return once they located Tunde. But deep inside, Amara knew she wouldn't wait that long. She stood near the window, watching the clouds shift over the city skyline. The late afternoon light poured in pale and tired, stretching across the room like a fading memory. Everything she had believed about her marriage, her love, her future, now hung by a thread. She kept hearing the officer's words. Whoever Emeka was. He's missing too. It echoed in her mind like a drumbeat. She turned toward the door, half expecting Tunde to walk in. Every creak of the floor made her flinch. Every sound from the corridor made her breath catch. And then the handle moved. Slowly. Quietly. The door opened. Tunde stepped inside, dressed in the same shirt from earlier, but now his sleeves were rolled up, and his face was slick with sweat. There was a faint smear on his arm. She didn't need to look twice to know what it was. Blood. He smiled weakly when he saw her. "My love," he said softly, closing the door behind him. "You look frightened. Did someone come here?" Her throat went dry. "The police were here." He froze for a moment, then gave a hollow laugh. "Of course they were. They always come when someone starts spreading lies." Amara took a step back. "They said they found blood by the river. They said a man is missing. Tunde, what's happening?" He walked closer, his eyes dark and unreadable. "You think I killed him, don't you?" Silence. Her lips trembled. "Tell me you didn't." He stopped inches away from her. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he whispered, "I didn't mean for it to happen." Her stomach dropped. "So it did happen?" He looked away, clenching his fists. "He was blackmailing me, Amara. He threatened to ruin everything. My company, our wedding, our life. I just wanted to scare him. But he fought back. He slipped. He fell." His voice cracked. "I panicked." Tears filled her eyes. "So you left him there? You walked into our wedding covered in his blood?" Tunde's voice turned desperate. "I did it for us. For you. Everything I've done, every risk I've taken, was to protect our future." "Protect it?" she whispered. "You destroyed it." He reached for her hand, but she pulled away. His face twisted in pain. "Please, don't look at me like that." "You're all I have left," she shook her head slowly. "You had everything. Love, respect, family. But you let greed take it all." For a long, heavy moment, the only sound in the room was their breathing. Then, a sharp knock echoed at the door. Tunde's eyes widened. "They found me." He backed away, scanning the room like a trapped animal. "You called them, didn't you?" he hissed. "No," Amara whispered. But he didn't believe her. His voice rose. "After everything I did for you! Tunde, please! Quiet!" he shouted, grabbing her wrist. His grip was tight, his eyes wild. "We're leaving. Now." She tried to pull away. "You can't run forever." His grip tightened. "Watch me." Then, another knock. Louder this time. "Mr. Adwale, open up!" "Police!" Amara's heart pounded. This was her only chance. "Tunde," she said softly, tears spilling down her cheeks. "If you ever loved me, let me go." He hesitated, just for a second. And in that heartbeat, she twisted free and stumbled toward the door. The officers burst in, weapons drawn. "Hands up!" Tunde turned, raising his hands slowly. His eyes found Amara's, filled with betrayal, heartbreak, and something like relief. As the officers cuffed him, he whispered, "I was trying to build a life for us." She stepped back, her voice trembling but firm. "You built it on blood." They led him out, the sound of handcuffs clinking like chains of memory. When the door closed behind them, Amara sank to the floor, sobbing quietly. The weight of it all crashed over her. The love that had turned to fear, the trust that had turned to pain. Outside, the city lights flickered on, one by one, glowing through the mist. For the first time, Amara realized what peace truly meant. It wasn't a wedding, or wealth, or dreams of perfection. It was the truth, even when it broke your heart. She wiped her tears, stood up slowly, and whispered, "It's over." The morning light was soft. the kind that feels like forgiveness. Weeks had passed since that terrible day. The noise, the questions, the whispers from neighbors, all had slowly faded. But Amara's silence remained. Today, she returned to the church alone. The same church where laughter once echoed, where drums once sang, where she had walked down the aisle with a heart full of dreams. Now her steps were quiet, measured, not in sorrow, but in strength. She wore a simple white dress. No veil, no gold jewelry, no flowers. Just peace. The doors creaked as she entered. The faint smell of incense lingered in the air. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows, scattering soft colors on the floor. Red, blue, gold, like memories painted in light. Amara walked slowly to the altar. Her heels clicked softly against the tiles, the sound echoing like a heartbeat. She knelt, her hands trembling slightly, and whispered a prayer. For the man who died, may your soul find rest. For the man I loved, may God forgive you. And for me, may I find peace in truth. A single tear slid down her cheek, but it wasn't the tear of pain. It was release. She opened her eyes and looked at the spot near the front of the church, the very place where she had once noticed it, the blood on Tunda's shoes. That image had haunted her, but now it no longer frightened her. It was the moment that had saved her life. For a long time, she sat there in silence, listening to the wind as it moved through the open doors. Somewhere outside, children laughed. A bird sang. Life, simple, unbroken, continued. She stood, her movements calm, graceful. Before leaving, she lit a candle, small but bright, and placed it at the foot of the cross. As the flame flickered, her voice, gentle but strong, filled the empty hall. Sometimes love blinds us, but when blood stains the vows, truth becomes the only light that can lead us home. She took a deep breath, turned, and began her last walk down the aisle. No music, no cheers, no bouquet, just the sound of her steps, steady, free, unhurried. At the doors, she paused for a moment and looked back one last time. The altar glowed faintly in the morning sun. The candle's flame burned steady, refusing to fade. Amara smiled, a quiet, genuine smile, not because everything was perfect, but because she had survived. She pushed the doors open and stepped out into the sunlight. The warmth touched her face, and the wind lifted her hair, as if the world itself was whispering. "You are free now." She walked forward, her white dress glowing under the sun, her heart lighter than it had been in a long time. For the first time since her wedding day, Amara was truly at peace.